In this lesson, we will build a control object for our aircraft. Now first, why would we create a control in the first place? Well, the answer is very simple. In order to conveniently control the object, we apply the control to. Take our aircraft. Let's say if we needed to animate this. Well, as of right now, we'd have to select between several pieces. So if we were to go ahead and marquee select to grab our aircraft, take a look. Let's go ahead and grab our move tool, pressing the W key, and start to move this object around. You can see that we have several pieces here that we would need to add keyframes to. And not only that, there are pieces here that we would not want added to our selection. So this is not convenient at all. So instead, what we can do is create just one object that each piece is linked to, and that way when we start to animate, that one object receives the animation and it keeps the rest of our objects clean. Alright, so let's go in and start to work on this control system. What I'll do is go ahead and deselect a few of our objects here. Our fueling line, we'll go in and deselect the cap for the fueling line. We'll also want to deselect the platform. And just FYI, if we were to press the J key on our keyboard, that will show us our selection bracket for each selected object. So this gives us very helpful indicators to what we currently have selected. If we were to go ahead and alt-click our platform, you could see now with these that it has been deselected. We could see that there is a piece still selected on our fueling line, and that's probably just the shape that was used to create this geometry. So we can press F3 to go to wireframe mode. Here's the line. Let's go ahead and alt-click to deselect it. Beautiful. So now, if we were to press F3 again, you can see no longer is there a selection bracket around our fueling line. Beautiful. Alright, so just double checking to make sure we have all pieces we need selected, grabbed. We can go ahead and start to move our ship around again using our move tool. You can see, alright, so we are good to go. We're ready to create an object to contain all of these pieces within. This object we'll create is simply a group. Alright, so let's go ahead and head over to the group menu. We'll create a group. Let's rename this. It's always a good idea to rename your objects so you can find them much faster. So I'm going to go to name this GRP Aircraft 01. I'd like to point out that yes, this is an introductory course, but the concepts that we will learn here can be used on any rig. So that's the exciting part. Alright, so we have our group created. So what's nice is that if we were to select any part on our aircraft, notice we're actually grabbing the entire aircraft now, which is very helpful for us. Now what I'd like to do is go in and, let's say, close this canopy piece. But as of right now, with our group, we're only selecting that one object. It's hard to select any other object unless we go in and open the group. So let's do that. With the group selected, we'll choose Group, Open. And now we have access to those pieces that were contained in the group. Alright, so we can go in and grab our canopy. Let's make sure we have angle snap enabled on our toolbar at the top. We could also use the A key to toggle that. We'll now press the E key to enter our rotate gizmo, and we can go ahead and start to rotate this down based off of 5-degree increments with angle snap until we've closed our canopy. Great, so this is going to be its new start position. When we create a custom parameter for it, we'll make sure that when the parameter is set to 100%, the canopy will be up. Alright, fantastic. Now, let's go ahead and press the Q key to enter our select tool. That way we don't accidentally shift things using our rotate manipulator. So I'm going to go back and press the Q key. What I'd like to show you next is a tool called Freeze Transforms. A lot of times when we go in and animate our objects, we need a way to bring them back to their default position. This is very important, especially for character animation where a system needs to be added to the character, let's say a dynamic system, and we need the character to start at a neutral pose. Well, if we do not freeze the transforms on the character's controls, it's going to be very tough to bring that character back to that same neutral state. Same thing goes for our ship. If we're animating and we need to be brought back to our neutral pose in order to add particles, which we will be working on closer to the end of this series, Well, it'd be kind of tough to do that unless we have a really cool way to get back to this neutral position. Alright, so freeze transforms is found under the animate quad menu. If we were to hold Alt and right mouse button click, we get to that quad menu. So notice here at the top, we'll find the freeze transforms tool. Alright, so let's go ahead and make sure to apply this. I'm going to go ahead and choose freeze transform. What Max will let us know is that it's going to create a new controller for us, and the original controllers that were tied to position and rotation, they're going to be frozen and muted out. Alright, so if we were to go ahead and choose yes, now if we were to head over to our motion panel and scroll down, currently we're under our position list. If we take a look at our PRS rollout, notice position is checked, and take a look here. Under the position list rollout, you can see that a 0 list has been added, which is wonderful. So now we can get back to this position with these. Same thing goes for rotation. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Alright, so again, this is helpful because if we were to go in and start to move our aircraft, now watch this. If we were to Alt right click, we can now choose transform to 0 to pop the ship right back in place. Same thing goes for rotation. If we're getting all crazy with our rotations and we decide to go back to the defaults, we can do so by Alt right clicking and choosing transform to 0. Very helpful. But still right now, we don't have a convenient way necessarily of controlling our ship. What if this group were hidden? Let's say if we select the group, go back to the group menu and choose close. Now when we deselect, that group is hidden and it's not too clear if we have a control at all. So a lot of times you'll find that handles are made in order to conveniently animate characters, or in this case, this vehicle. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create a handle type of control. So let's go ahead and actually create let's say a box. And what we'll do is go ahead and press the G key so we can take a look at our grid. And we'll go ahead and create our box along this grid. Alright, next, what we're going to do is snap this box over to the center here of our ship, which is right at the origin of our grid. So if we were to press the F3 on our keyboard, now we can very easily see where that origin is. We can now press the W key to go to our move tool. We'll enable grid snapping, so let's first enable snapping here. On our toolbar, we'll right click to take a look at our settings. I'll turn off vertex snapping and enable grid point snapping. Alright, so now we can go ahead and start to move this object from its center. Now, you might see something at the center of my gizmo that you may not see on your gizmo. This little handle right here in the center allows us to move in screen space. So this is a way of taking an object's pivot point and snapping exactly where we'd like it to be snapped to. If you do not see this, it's very easy to turn this on. Just head over to Customize, Preferences, and underneath Gizmos, you'll find Move in Screen Space. So let's make sure that center box handle is on, and we'll choose OK. And now let's go ahead and snap this to the origin of our scene. Just go ahead and slide that over. And that's, of course, where the darker lines of our grid meet. And there we have it. Alright, so once this cube object is in place, let's go ahead and press the S key to turn off grid snapping. And we'll press F3 to take a look at our object. Alright, so now it's time to create a control from this. Let's go ahead and start to reshape this box a bit more. And then we'll go ahead and take the edges that we would like to keep and convert those into a shape that we can use as a control. Alright, so first things first, let's go to our modify panel. Right now, we cannot extrude this box, not until we have made it editable. So we'll right click and choose Convert to Editable Poly. And now we can go to our polygon subobject and we can select the pieces we'd like to extrude. So I'm going to go ahead and select the back. We can now scroll down until we find Extrude. Let's go to our options. We can start to slide the polygon back closer to the tail. And now I'm going to choose OK to save this change. Let's go to the front and do the same thing. We'll With it selected, go to our extrude options. Notice Max remembers our settings, which is wonderful. So now we can choose OK again. And we can now enter into, let's say, our vertex subobject level to start moving a few points that we'd like to adjust. So we can start to drag these down. I'll go to the points at the front now and move those forward. And then I'll have the shape kind of taper. All right, wonderful. So I'd say the front looks good. Let's go ahead and adjust the end. We'll go ahead and select our back points here. Bring these down. Great. And now let's go in and scale the end down. All right, that looks nice. Let's press F3 to go to our wireframe mode and start to adjust just a few more points here. We can go ahead and drag a few points down just so we have a control that's easier to select that doesn't intersect with our aircraft. A little bit of intersection is okay, but the idea here is we want to make an object that is easy to select. All right, so from there, we can enter into edge mode and grab all of the edges we would like to keep. So I'm actually going to create the edges that would create a type of roll cage for our aircraft. Okay, so there's one side, and now we can go ahead and select the other half. Just control clicking each of these edges. Just about done. Alright, so with all of these selected, watch this. We can go ahead and scroll down, and underneath Edit Geometry, we have a feature here that will allow us to go ahead and convert this object to a shape. Well, excuse me, not Edit Geometry, but Edit Edges. Here we have it. It's Create Shape from Selection. Let's go ahead and choose that. We can go ahead and give this a name. We're going to use anim for the prefix that we use for our animation control. If we do that, we can find our animation controls much faster this way, and I'll go ahead and show you a cool tool we can use to find those objects. So that's anim_aircraft 01. We'll go to make sure that the shape type is linear and choose OK. So watch this. Now we can go ahead and exit out of our subobject level of the polygon. Let's press F3. And with it selected, we can press delete on our keyboard, and now we're left with this really cool shape. All right. Now, again, you can see we've named this object anim. If we were to press H on our keyboard to enter our select from scene dialog, notice if we had to find any objects in our scene with that same prefix, it's just a matter of going to the find field at the top and typing in anim. So now it'll quickly bring us to that object, and now we can choose OK. So any other objects with that same prefix would also be selected when we choose OK. Really convenient. We can go ahead and recolor this object if we'd like. I might work with a color of bright yellow. That way it's easy to find. And we could also add some thickness to this object by going to Rendering underneath the Modify panel and enabling Rendering in the viewport to add some thickness. All right, beautiful. So now if we wanted to, we can go ahead and either increase or decrease the thickness from here. I might have this kept at 1, but you have that option. All right, so our control here is in place. And we're controlling it from a very convenient spot right at the center of our ship. So now what we can do is take our airship, let's grab our link tool, and we can link it or connect it to our control by simply dragging from the object to the object we'd like to link it or parent it to. So now what happens is if we go ahead and grab our control and start to move this, it's controlling the entire airship. If we were to go ahead and select our airship, notice we have another level of control here to animate offsets by moving our group. Beautiful. Now if we'd like to break that link, we can go ahead and use unlink selected from here. We'd want to select the child object or the object that was linked and choose unlink. And now we're brought back to where we were before. Now very important, when we link our objects, at that point we then want to go in and freeze transforms to establish this new 0 position. So I'm going to go ahead and select the control object here. I'll go ahead and control click our airship, and now we can go ahead and alt right click and choose transform to, or excuse me, freeze transform to go ahead and reset the transform on each of these objects. Much better. All right, great. So we have now created a control for our aircraft. Very neat. And that's going to be it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to learn more about parenting by working with 3ds Max's schematic view.